We're so happy that you're here with us, the Ready Education Customer Success Team, for our annual Back to School webinar. I thought this morning, how on earth is it August? I'm sure you're all feeling the same. So we're really happy to sort of come together today and talk about some of the best practices for this time of the year with our Ready Education platform. Just a bit of housekeeping. So all of you, I think, are going to be on mute by default. So if you do have a question, please feel welcome to use the chat box. There's also a question answer section that you can use on Zoom, but there'll be a dedicated question and answer section at the tail end of our webinar where you can chat in any additional questions you have, and our campus success consultants will answer those for you. For anyone that registered and couldn't make it today, any of your colleagues or anyone who does want to review the recording later, never fear, Liz from our marketing team will get that generated and sent out to you as soon as possible. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic to our Head of Customer Success, Talia.
Hi, everybody. So as Terry mentioned, I'm the head of customer success here at Ready. I've met some of you, not all of you. I will be popping my email into the chat. So if you would like to connect with me, please feel free to email me. We'll book some time so I can get to know you guys better. I will let my team introduce themselves, and I'm based in Los Angeles.
Awesome. Thanks, Talia. I'm Terry. A lot of you on the line have met me at some point. I'm based in Montreal, originally from New Zealand.
Peter O'Reilly, Campus Success Consultant. I'm based in Somerville, Massachusetts.
Hi, I'm Carrie. I'm a Campus Success Consultant. I'm based in Pittsfield, Maine. My first back to school with Ready, having spent the last 6 with Kennebec Valley Community College.
Hey, Theo Tomich, Campus Success Consultant in Boston, Massachusetts.
Hi, Chelsea Goza, Campus Success Consultant in Sparkman, Arkansas.
Hi, I'm Jessie Yeager and I live in Oklahoma.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. We've got a real spread of locations here, which is fantastic. So on the agenda today, really the focus is going to be the back to school season, what it looks like in 2021, some of the new and interesting challenges that presents. Carrie and Chelsea are really going to drill into the orientation module. So how to centralize those back to school resources to provide seamless access for your students. We're then going to pass the mic to Peter and Theo, who are going to dive deep into our new channel management system and some of the best practices there. And then Jessie and I will take you through how to think about kind of COVID reopening, mental health, and all of those other things under the safe and healthy back to school umbrella. Then we'll make sure we've got some time at the end for Q&A. So before we get started, we love a quick poll. So we want to just ask the question, how prepared is your institution to welcome students back to school for the fall? So hopefully right now you can see on your screen a poll question with a few different options. Yes, we feel prepared. Maybe we're getting there. Or no, we do not feel prepared. So go ahead and choose your selection and we'll take a look at the results in a moment. And I'm loving seeing all of these chats coming through. Very, very cool to see the spread of campus partners we've got on the line today. So, Adrian, when you're ready, we can probably pop up those results. Awesome. So really cool to see these results. So we've got a good group there that is feeling prepared, close to a quarter of the group that answered the poll today. A lot of maybes. I think maybe is a common sentiment right now. We're not quite sure what back to school is going to look like. It's changing a little bit every day. And we do have a small portion there who have acknowledged they perhaps don't feel as prepared. So we hope that there'll be something in this webinar today that helps move that no to a maybe, and maybe a maybe up to a yes. So thanks again for joining us. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic to Chelsea and Carrie. No, I'm not. I'm going to pass the mic first to Peter to set the scene for 2021.
Awesome. Thank you, Terry. So just going to do a little bit of stage setting and provide some of the why for today's session. So I'm going to take a moment just to consider really what motivates us here at Ready. I'm assuming everyone on this webinar given where you're coming from at your own institutions. You're well aware of the impact of the last 18 months, especially on new student enrollment, as well as existing students who may have decided to pause their studies. So for today, regardless of enrollment impact at your institution, we feel that the reality is the same from the student perspective, where there are now two versions of first-year students who are going to have varying levels of need, but also knowledge of how to access and utilize your campus resources. So we've seen, as I'm sure you all have seen, heightened levels of anxiety among students, and especially given the ongoing pandemic uncertainty, students might be unsure right now of what modality they're going to be experiencing throughout the semester, throughout the year. We at Ready, we know we can play our part in reducing the friction that will be felt as students return to campus. So as we go through today, keep in mind that many of these strategies can extend beyond back to school with slight tweaks to then better align with your student success strategies. So I'll pass it over to Carrie and Chelsea, and they'll get us started on back to school resources.
Oh, Carrie, you're just on mute.
Absolutely. Chelsea and I are going to talk about centralizing our back to school resources. For many of the schools that we're working with, this is something that was a main goal when the Ready platform was brought in, when the app was brought in. And perhaps you've been using the orientation module. And now we're going to look at some ways to build on that. Now that we have centralized resources into the campus guide for students, we can go in and make actual microcosms for students. So perhaps we're looking at welcome days that we can see on this screen. And we're looking at those questions that students are bringing with them as they come back onto campus or start classes again this fall. How do I get IT support? How can I make new friends? How can we bring the resources very easily to these students in one tile? That's the orientation module. We're able to bring in the resources as well as create some additional spaces for students, as we can see off to the right with their due dates, with a way to communicate as well. I saw that Janie was here with us today, and I think that she will back me up and say that our favorite question starting in April, going all the way through until mid-September, is what does R mean on my schedule? When am I supposed to go to class if it says R? So definitely that's our Thursday. You got it, Jeannie. So that's our Thursday, right? And wouldn't it be wonderful if we had a space we could put that and students would have easy access to that question? And absolutely. So some recommendations for our orientation module, if we're going to be using it outside of orientation, making those welcome weeks available for student or any other programming. Create a one-stop shop based on any season or programming. It does not have to be left for orientation alone. Creating those dedicated channels, having that post in there about R is Thursday. I know for Kennebec Valley, if it says TR, I need to be there on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Wouldn't it be awesome to have that in one spot so students could easily access that? Adding in those details for required events on campus. We all know we need to pick up our student ID. Wouldn't it be great if we had an easy access to where and when we can do that? Helpful checklists, making sure the FAFSA is done, been selected for verification. This is everything I need to do in order to make sure I'm going to have financial aid this semester. And enlist our student leaders. They are going to speak with other students better than we are. We know that. So being able to have them spread throughout community and helping with our students as they come onto campus this fall. I'm going to hand it over to Chelsea now because she created the great module flow. So I'm going to let her walk us through it.
Yeah, so as Carrie mentioned, the orientation module is a great tool to use in your back to school season. It's a great way to put all of that necessary information into one module, one campus tile, so your students have easy access. So very quickly, I'm going to walk you through what that would look like with an example of back to school season. So if you think about your welcome week or welcome days or any activities you have coming up right here at the back to school season, you could encapsulate those into this module, having your detail page, which outlines the title, the description, a carousel list of events that students could scroll through, also having a link out where they can see a full list there. Also on the details page, they have the due dates, which would be your checklist, any important dates or to-dos that the student needs to be sure that they accomplish. Students can also see the other members within the orientation module. So for example, if this was used for a specific group, they can go in and see, you know, what other students are also in that group. And then the last piece, which is my favorite, is you have your own little community space. So we'll dive deeper into the community piece here in just a few moments, but you can see kind of the pathway as a student would navigate through that module, seeing the events page where they can join a virtual event directly from the app, also having access to a map if it's an on-campus event. Students can subscribe to the events or the due dates where they would actually get reminders and have those in their calendar. And then for the community piece that's within the orientation module, it gives students that opportunity to make connections with one another and really open up that two-way communication between students, faculty, staff, etc. So as we move into another great feature for our app as it relates to building that community and communicating with students, we also have the notifications piece. Now, real quickly, I just want to distinguish the difference between the community space that I just spoke of and the notify piece. So an example here, if you're thinking about back to school time, is let's say, for instance, in the community space within the orientation module, you had posted a week ago that there is going to be a welcome activity on the quad with hot dogs and ice cream, etc. And then let's say that day gets here and it rains and the weather is terrible and an outdoor event would be awful. So you would need to very quickly pivot and send a notification, an urgent message to those students and let them know, hey, you know, we're not going to be able to do this event on the quad. We'll need to actually move that indoors, and here are the steps, or here's where you should navigate to. So that's really the distinguishing difference. Your community space is more for two-way communication, nice to know information. Push notifications are those urgent messages that you need to get out and remind students about or let them know. One of the key pieces here, and this really goes back to our motto of reaching the right student at the right time, is the audiences tool. So within the app, you have the ability to set up audiences, which would ultimately segment out your student population so that you can define them by certain criteria. Examples here include first year experience, returning sophomore students, really just breaking them out by their classification. So freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Your residence halls, if you have certain students in the residence halls, your student athletes. You could even set up an audience that is, for example, your business students who are also student athletes, if you have certain communications that need to go to those specific groups. And again, this is really more for eliminating that problem that we see with email. When we send a mass email, students tend to ignore it. And we definitely don't want that to happen here with the push notifications or any other messaging. So we highly recommend the audiences. With that, we have some best practices or some tips and suggestions for leveraging our audiences tool. Starting with, like I said, taking your student population and segmenting that into groups or classifications. So building out different segments that you can reach with your messaging. Secondly, we recommend that you develop a timely communication plan. So, you know, obviously the weather and different things like that that might come up, that's going to be an immediate message that you'll have to put together. But any of those deadlines or event reminders or any types of communications that you can go ahead and map out before the semester starts, that's actually ideal, because then you can just send those messages at the time that they should be sent. Number three, we recommend that you remember to use student speak. This is a mobile message and it should be short, sweet, and concise, not necessarily a lengthy, long email. Number four ensure your message has a distinct call to action. So I like to refer to this as closing the loop for the students. Not only in the push notification do you give them the information, but you also tell them what steps they need to take to complete that task, whatever that task may be. And then number 5 is consider setting up dynamic audiences for more targeted messaging. So within our app, you have options for audiences. You have the CSV option for audiences, but you also have a dynamic audiences option that works with your student information system. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to reach out to your campus success consultant, and we'd love to talk to you more about it. Now I'm going to pass it back over to Carrie, and she can talk through some of our assessment pieces that we have for you.
Thank you, Chelsea. So for many of you, you're already using assessment. You're using those QR codes with different events, services on campus. When we're talking about that orientation module and we're able to bring the events and bring the to-dos into one spot for our students coming back this fall, now that we've put the events there, we've told them about the events and we get them there, this is a great time to start the muscle memory and have them scan into an event, scan into the service. If the response is, I don't have the app, here's our opportunity. Make sure we get them to download the app. They're going to register into the app. Remember, we're shooting for that 90% adoption rate for our first year students. And here's a second opportunity for those second year students who are coming back almost like a first year student. So making sure that they have the app as well. So you can see off to the left, we have some event details and students can add that to their calendar. And with the middle, we're showcasing that not only is that QR code available, but if you're still holding some events via Zoom, Teams, WebEx, here's a URL that you can pop into your chat. We know students are often taking that event on their phone, so scanning a QR code is probably not going to happen. But if you pop that URL right into the chat, they're able to put their name, last name, and email and check in that way instead. So you can still get that attendance and the valuable feedback. We want that feedback from our students. We want to know the event is meeting their needs, and they're going to have the best ideas for improving those events. So we can see off to the right, our student check-in, please rate our experience. Of course, we do have some best practices for this as well. So we'll head on to the next one, Terry, and look at those best practices. So definitely measuring performance while also generating app adoption, right? So can't scan in, recommend downloading the app, walk them through that process, getting logged in. And then when it comes to actually measuring performance, what is it that you want to measure? Many times our events will have benchmarks that we want to hit. Perhaps they're grant funded and we want to be able to give some feedback back to the financing source. So we can use that as our benchmark for the feedback question. Make sure we turn on assessments for events and services. Give students that opportunity to give feedback. Promoting steps for QR check-ins, make sure all services understand what's happening, understand how students can quickly scan in, provide that valuable feedback. And then when we're closing that feedback loop, let's reach back out to the students. Thank them for their response, right? We want to hear from them. So a couple of ways of doing that. In Campus Cloud, you can individually respond to a student for their specific feedback, or you can even pull everybody into a group and respond out and thanks for all the feedback. So hopefully, you're already using this on campus, but want to bring that back out again and let you know that that's part of that orientation module as well. So you can quickly have those QR codes created for all events.
So we do actually have some questions coming in. So it sounds like a few folks have raised their hand. So feel free to chat in messages about the QR code process now. Randall asks, can we have dynamic QR codes to prevent sharing? So right now our QR codes do not automatically scramble, but we do have some best practices on how you can kind of prevent this. So Randall, connect with your CS, and the next time that you check in, they'll be able to walk you through that. We've definitely passed that feedback on to our product team as well. So let us know if you discover your own best practices or any additional challenges you have. Okay.
And we're going to move, this is when we look at QR codes, we really look at getting that feedback on events and services. But Chelsea's actually going to look at some of the fun ways that we can use QR codes to navigate around campus and to welcome our new students back so they can start to see what resources are available for them on campus.
Yeah, so a common question, concern that we get from customers is twofold. We hear from them that students learning where things are on campus. And then another piece is getting them to download and engage within the app. So scavenger hunts are a great way to not only let them learn about campus and learn where different departments are and learn where different buildings and activities are, but also getting them to download the app and engage in it through the QR codes. So a way that you would do that in the campus cloud system is you would actually go in and create a service and name it Scavenger Hunt. You would want to make sure that you set it as hidden, just, to not give away all the good stuff. And then on number 2, you would turn the assessment piece on. That is the way that you will generate those QR codes. From there, you would create a service provider for each of the locations on your campus where you want to place the QR code for the scavenger hunt. Beyond that, you'd create a list of clues for your students to help them find those locations. And then a way to get them really engaged and starting to use the piece that Peter and Theo are going to discuss, our new channels and community, is ask them to post a selfie in a channel saying that they've completed the hunt and they've learned where everything is on campus. So with that, I'm going to pass this over to Peter and Theo and let them talk through our channels.
All right. Thank you, Chelsea. Appreciate it. Peter will be jumping into the fundamentals of channels momentarily, but first let's dig into the why. Why channels? Really because students have an overwhelming number of ways to absorb information between, phone, text, websites, email, snail mode, and a multitude of social media networks, some of which are shown here, many of which are not. But channels can really help cut through that noise. So the academic, the social, the co-curricular conversations that are related to school are in a single place in their campus app. And each channel is set up in a feed, which is more and more commonly how students prefer to absorb their information by scrolling. Furthermore, there's a lot of research that shows that engagement by student greatly increases their likelihood of persisting in college. So we want to give them as many opportunities as possible to get and to stay engaged. Especially if that place of engagement is also in the campus app, where they can go to view those events that are going on around campus, get in touch with school offices or services, and where they can participate in those great initiatives like the scavenger hunts, like the orientation module, which Chelsea and Carrie were just talking about. Next slide.
Great. Thank you, Theo. So at its core, channels they're meant to create a welcoming environment for all students where they can decide and tune into various topics and contribute then to conversations that align with their interests and needs. Choose your own adventure. This, as you may all be aware, it's a closed, authenticated campus community, which it basically allows your staff to collect real-time insights with some of the built-in moderation that'll allow staff to pinpoint where students might be derailing the community conversation. So we're at a crucial time now as you head into this new academic year, which is going to be the first full year when channel management is broadly available. It's now time to audit what currently exists. So a few tips and tricks to help get you started. First and foremost, do you have channels activated for your app? If not, contact your CSC and our support team, and we'll get that process started. For the standard channels that previously existed, are they even being used? So if not, let's sunset them and start brainstorming new ideas that students might be a little bit more interested in. Now, for the ones that you decide to keep, add some emojis or images, as well as descriptions that help customize each space where students can differentiate. And then also provide these campus specific names that reinforce the feeling that this is your own closed campus community. With every new channel that you create, one thing to keep in mind, always have starter content in each new channel so that students see, you know, what they're discussing, and also understand from the folks that already pre-populate the channels really how to engage in that space. Now, what happens once we've completed the audit? This is where we can have a little bit of fun. So you know your campus better than anyone. While we at Ready, we can always recommend types of channels. There's going to need to be a little bit of experimentation around what students in your community are going to gravitate towards. So rolling out these new channels, it's going to allow you to announce a little bit more focused spaces to for specific groups or areas of interest. We have some examples here today, some that I really love. So Oregon Tech, they've seen regular calls for volunteers within their student feed. So students asking who needs their teeth cleaned, who might be available to help with this specific practicum I'm working on, or other on-campus volunteering opportunities. So they thought a volunteer channel would be a perfect fit. Olivet College, to help combat food insecurity, they have a space for their food pantry to share announcements and increase visibility. You'll see they used a college-specific name with comments covered. Rasmussen, they have a peer-driven community with less staff interaction, where students, they're always in there supporting each other. And it made sense to then funnel questions into an Ask Your Peers channel. This final one of my favorites, UT Dallas, they recently launched. If anybody's here, hello, welcome, great to have you. They saw a really quick uptake on their community right after launch. And the first thing they noticed is, why are all these students posting memes? So sure enough, they created their Memes and Things channel, and students noticed right away. They saw this new channel and they started posting memes there. There's one caveat or disclaimer that this isn't 100% foolproof. This isn't a guarantee that no meme will ever be posted within your general student feed. Now, when we think about this from the staff perspective, rather than what channels students might gravitate towards, we always come back to one central question, which is, if students are here asking questions rather than picking up the phone or sending an email, are staff aware and equipped to intervene and moderate these spaces? So we've seen student services staff, student workers, they can be an invaluable resource in identifying trends, just listening into student needs across these channels, which is then going to inform your moderation. And it's also going to inform what goes on elsewhere in your app. So, within Campus Guide, sure, we could highlight a crucial deadline, a big upcoming event, homecoming, or maybe a service that we want to promote at a certain time of year. Financial aid, FAFSA is open. But in order to gain higher visibility, our research with partner institutions has shown that cross-promoting something from Campus Guide into your community can increase interactions up to 10 times higher than a standalone tile. And also just keep in mind, you can also cross-promote a brand new channel as a featured tile in Campus Guide. So this is really, all to say that the community, powerful tool. It's, it isn't just a social network, but can be that support tool for staff to really maximize their reach. And it's really up to you whether this happens in a public or a more private targeted space.
Peter, we have a question about the permissions for this. So if someone is wanting to be able to set up a channel, what would they need to do?
So to set up a new channel, we have a bunch of documentation, which your CSC is happy to provide, also in our help center. When you create a new channel, you have the ability to set an owner and a moderator, and also control who you invite into that space. And then also within the backend permissions, the ability to determine whether or not certain staff have the community manager permission, which allows a little bit more of that, the moderation ability.
Awesome. And you mentioned we can now put a channel in a tile. That's new. Can you, is that something that they can do in Studio?
Absolutely. You can go to add new tile, and within one of the drop down sections, you can select new channel and determine which channel you're going to promote, say in a featured tile on a monthly basis, bi-monthly basis, whatever cadence works for you all.
That's very cool. Thank you.
Great transition too, talking about some settings and some private channels, because we have the ability to have both public and private channels, because sometimes it can be intimidating for some students to put themselves out there in a big public forum that's potentially visible to the entire campus. So you have an opportunity to create those private channels, which are great for providing a space where students can digitally gather in smaller groups, where those students can feel a little bit more welcome, feel a little bit more confident in participating in the conversation. To quickly run through the differences between public and private channels, in both types, you can customize the type of posts that are allowed in that channel. You can make it open, question and answer, or perhaps an announcements only channel. Next, you can provision channel owners and moderators and community managers too, as Peter was just talking about. You can set up multiple of each. And this is also a great place to potentially involve student leaders, so they have a little bit more ownership of the community, and you can instill a little bit of a digital citizenship for them. You can also allow offices or departments, we call them hosts in the platform. They can also serve as moderators or channel owners as well. So it's great to get a response from an office or an individual in that case. Now, some of the differences are with public channels, you can set them up as a default channel. So that means that anyone who downloads, logs into the app, or any existing users can be automatically added to a channel, versus with private channels where they are invite only. Now that means that a student can potentially search for and find the channel, but they will need to request to join. Now, moderators and channel owners, they can then review and approve those requests, as well as proactively invite other students to join the channel. That's a great smaller use case for some of those audiences that Chelsea and Carrie were talking about earlier too. Lastly, private channels can be set to be undiscoverable. So that means that the only way to join a channel is through an invitation from a moderator. Students will not be able to search for, they will not be able to find that channel. It's particularly useful with private channels that are potentially set up for organizations like affinity groups to accommodate students who, perhaps for personal reasons, they don't necessarily want their membership to be public knowledge.
Great, thanks, Theo, and thank you for mentioning the digital citizenship. We are seeing a number of campuses actually formalize leadership roles within these spaces, setting up leaders, ambassadors, influencers. So if you're really interested in setting up something like that, check in with your campus success consultant. We love strategizing on that type of thing.
We love strategizing. We also are able to set up some small trainings for those groups as well. So on this slide, you'll actually see one of our favorite use cases that's popped up recently for how private channels can be used, which is at San Jose State University. They are a large state university, and so they wanted to group first-year students together into smaller virtual houses in order to provide better support and foster a stronger sense of belonging. So they rolled out this concept called Spartan Village, which divides their nearly 4,000 freshman students into 57 smaller virtual houses. At that point, SJSU got together with their campus success consultant, Terry, great work, and they found a way to leverage private channels to provide good digital spaces for these students in the campus app, which is called Sammy. So it's actually launching tonight, believe it or not, August 10th. So each virtual house is going to have its own private channel where the first year students are going to be paired with upper class student leaders. Now the student leaders will provide support for the freshmen within their designated channel. They'll help them navigate the first year experience at San Jose State in areas such as campus life, navigating those schedules, which Carrie was talking about earlier, as well as registering for classes. So 57 private channels, it's a rather large application of the channel management system, but it's a fantastic demonstration of how private channels can be leveraged to help improve the student experience. So if you have any ideas on how you'd want to use public or private channels, don't hesitate to reach out to us and your CSC, and we can work together on those ideas. Now, that actually brings up a great point where we would like to invite you all here to pause for a moment. If you want to maybe jump into the chat and share some ideas for private channels that are bubbling up in your minds, because I know it always happens to me when I'm talking about this, whether your idea is something that you've already done publicly, or if it's something that's just hitting you now, we would love to see it in the chat. So some ideas to start us off are like, what affinity groups would appreciate having a space to connect with one another more regularly? What segments of the student population would really benefit from being able to share their experiences with one another? Then, what academic programs or initiatives should have their own space in the app for a little digital communications? And then, as Peter was talking about, with memes and everything, what social outlets can we give students as well?
We've got a great suggestion from David here, David from Queens. Equity seeking groups, Indigenous groups, visible minorities, absolutely, LGBTQ groups. We're definitely seeing that use case popping up as well. Cies, what would we have if we were creating channels for our hypothetical campus?
Student employees.
Yes. What to watch this weekend? Absolutely. Veteran students, that's a great example that we're seeing pop up. I wonder if we've got anyone from Olivet College on the line. I know they're getting ready to launch their app and they've had some great ideas as well. Student government private groups, something we're seeing popping up a lot as well.
Yeah, and to that end, I have a couple partners I work with that also use this for the staff and faculty side as well. So if they have an active staff community, they can maybe have their marketing department, specific academic departments go ahead and have their own little private group where they can share information, best practices in a digital space that's a little bit easier to use.
And if you want to get really meta, you can set up a private group for your app team. So your group that all works on the app, it can be a great place to get used to the tool while also communicating. Public channel gratitude tree for our entire community. I love that, Stephanie. Thank you for sharing. Jordan also mentioned private channels for student leaders, club leaders, RAs, etc. Yes. Keep popping your ideas in. We will move along. I want to be cognizant of time, but definitely we're all about sharing ideas here. So go ahead and keep chatting those in.
Appreciate it. In review, in the end, there are some clear tactical next steps that everyone can take in order to make sure that you're really taking advantage of channels in your campus app. Number one, if you don't have them already, go ahead and create a few public and private channels. If you don't know what to create, go ahead, lean on your students and ask. They're a great resource for you to continually involve in the process. Next, as Peter said, customize those channels to make sure they are unique to your campus community. The names of each channel should reflect the campus, and go ahead and use those emojis, icons, the descriptions to make it clear what the purpose of the channel is. Then you can set your permissions for each channel, making them default, public, private, etc. And you can assign moderators, owners, and those community managers to help run the entire module. Again, it's a great way to get student leaders involved in digital citizenship on campus. Then with your newly created channels, make sure that there is starter content in each one so that when students join the conversation, the channel is already providing a welcoming environment. No one wants to dip that first toe in the pool kind of idea. Ask students to introduce themselves. You can use hashtags. You can have quick photo contests, like what I did over the summer, now that we're getting back to school, to go ahead and start each channel strongly. Then once your channels are set up and ready, go ahead, use those audiences to invite groups of students into the appropriate channel. And then you can enrich the content further for your channels by cross-promoting. Put your resources in there. What events are coming up? Promote your clubs and services, offices, even promote other channels in other channels. You have a volunteer channel, go ahead and put it in the main student feed so folks can see that that's going on there. Last couple, don't forget the channels can provide a great place to involve student leaders. They're some of your best resources for on-message content creation and for building buy-in among students. And then last but not least, perhaps most importantly, make sure your community is set up to be a sustainable, vibrant digital quad for your students. You can foster participation. You can get a pulse on what's happening with your students. And the best way to do that is really to follow the above items, involve students as much as possible, and to continue posting, answering questions, asking for input from your students throughout the semester, throughout the entire year. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Theo. And one other great thing about channel management is finally you can post from your phone as your service. You don't have to run back to Campus Cloud every time you want to make an official post. So we love that as well. Thank you for these awesome ideas. I hope the CS team is scribbling them down so we remember them. And thank you, Theo and Peter. So I guess we're passing the mic to Jessie and myself now to talk about how to have a safe and healthy back to school with some of our new modules on offer. So Jessie, why don't you kick us off?
Keeping in step with back to school, this section we're going to cover safe and healthy return. And we would be remiss if we did not address the elephant in the room, which is returning back to school in the midst of a pandemic. So we know a lot of these challenges listed are top of mind to many of you, which are the unknowns of the Delta variant, the possibility of having to recommunicate mask mandates, navigating through vaccine requirements, and continuing to offer and improve your online learning and services. And then last but not least, there's the increased need for mental health and support on your campus. So we are here to help you with these challenges. And next, I'd like to pass the mic to Terry to talk about Ready's Health and Wellness Plus.
Great, thanks, Jessie. I remember sitting here presenting this back to school webinar last year from home and thinking, surely it's not going to be long before I can go back to the office, but here we are. And so Ready Education has really put a lot of resources over the last 12 months into what we're calling our Health and Wellness Plus bundle. A number of you on the line I know will have met with us to talk about this bundle, but I just wanted to go through a few of the highlights today. So under the Health and Wellness Plus umbrella, we have Contact Trace Plus, which is an entitlement on offer, and mental health interventions. And I know there's a lot of folks on the line here that have the Contact Trace Plus module deployed right now. Within that, there are things like pre-screening forms, the ability to run automated contact tracing, case management tools, the ability to send exposure notifications should you have an outbreak, and crucially, new flows for vaccinations. So that's the Contact Trace Plus entitlement within the Health and Wellness umbrella. On the right-hand side, the team's also been working around the clock to build out our mental health interventions. So within that, we have a content library that we've built in collaboration with Duke University's health team. We have micro assessments, self-assessments. We're building keyword triggers from your community, workflows and sequences, and increased support for emergency contacts. So we're super excited about this umbrella, and I'll talk you through a little bit of what's on offer in each entitlement. So Contact Trace Plus, this is something I've spent a lot of time implementing over the last 12 months. It's a great tool to support that safe reopening. So you can see here just some graphics to help you start visualizing. We've built a forms system. So you can see here a really simple flow: pre-screening, result, and campus health pass. So campuses have the ability to really customize their own workflows using our system and create a really simple, sort of clear, not clear pass system to enter campus. On the right here, you'll see we also have extended our assessment capabilities for location tracking. So you can enable location-based QR codes so that your students can let us know where they've been on campus should there be an outbreak and you need to get in touch with them. So these are really foundational elements. I won't go into all of the bells and whistles of this today, but one of our most recent updates to this is actually support for vaccinations. So what you can see on my screen here is a really simple process where individuals can upload their completed vaccination series, which you can then send into a review status, meaning that a case manager on the other end receives that and is able to review and then hopefully confirm fully vaccinated, at which point we'd pass them a blue pass. So again, there's a lot of different things that the Contact Trace Plus module can support. If you're interested in learning more about this, because I want to be cognizant of time, please connect with your campus success consultant. It's a quick deploy should you want to get that set up. The other crisis that we're all grappling with is, of course, the mental health crisis. So in addition to the physical health challenges that come with COVID-19, we're definitely seeing a rise in mental health related challenges as well, especially with a lot of those anxieties of coming back to campus. And here are a number of headlines that I'm sure you've all seen from sources like Chronicle of Higher Ed, Inside Higher Ed. I swear every week I'm seeing some sort of headline pertaining to the mental health crisis. And so as part of our Health and Wellness Plus offering, we've been working hard on building support for mental health interventions. So under Mental Health Plus, there's going to be a lot of great features to provide additional support for your students. One of those is keyword alerts. We've been partnered with Duke Health for a long time, researching this issue, and in a recent survey we conducted with them, we learnt that from the partner campuses that we surveyed, 64% of the students that dropped out cited mental health as one of those key reasons why. As Theo and Peter have talked about, we've got this incredible channel system, and one of the things the Ready Education platform does particularly well is enables community. We want to take that to the next level and actually allow you to set your own keyword alerts to trigger certain topics, whether it's anxiety, whether it's stress, and have that trigger a certain number of actions that happen after the fact. So keyword alerts, we're also extending our forms functionality to include self-assessment, micro-assessment. So being able to do quick surveys with your students on how they're feeling, how they're doing during exams. These will all be customizable by you, so you can quickly understand how your population is feeling. Take this screenshot, for example. Imagine being able to quickly ask everyone, how are you feeling today? Wonderful, excited, happy, stressed, anxious. And imagine being able to know in almost real time that 20% of your respondents said they felt either stressed or anxious. I could only dream of that technology in my former role as a Res Life director. So we're super excited about this and being able to surface insights in real time for you. So that's an exciting piece. And under the hood, we're actually building out the ability for you to be able to create custom sequences and workflows. So if a student says something like anxious, depressed, stressed, you can actually decide what happens next. Does it trigger an admin? Does it send off a resource? Does it trigger a form that you want that user to be able to fill out? We're starting to deploy this now with our first phase of workflows. So if you're interested in learning more about this, definitely connect with your CSC who can set up an overview session. So where this all fits in our wider student success pyramid, I know a lot of you on the line will have seen us share this before. This student success pyramid really is our guiding light as it pertains to how we develop product, as it pertains to how we support our campus partners, how we build strategy. And so if you think about that top layer of intervention, this is really where Health and Wellness Plus fits in. So being able to intervene with students around physical health, mental health, and we're building additional modalities to this as well around financial health, social health, co-curricular, academic health. And so we're really excited to be finally tackling this top tier of our student success pyramid. So we love another quick poll. So if you are interested in learning more about Ready's Health and Wellness Plus, again, encapsulating both Contact Trace Plus and our Mental Health Plus interventions, Adrian, I think, is going to pop up a poll on the screen. And so if you're interested in your CSC getting in touch, check the yes, I'm interested box, and your CSC will be in touch very soon. So with about 9 minutes left to go, let's break out for Q&A. So CS team, I wonder if we have any questions that have come through the chat or the Q&A section that we should be addressing now.
I've just been following the amazing ideas for channels. So there have been a few questions, but I think I'm over inundated with these ideas. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited to put together a best practices after this. So if anyone does have any questions, please do pop them in the Q&A box now. I can see Dawn, my friend from over at Bennett College. Thank you for your question. Dawn asks, are you able to add people to channels without inviting? So great question, Dawn. Yes, there are a couple of different ways that people can be added to channels. You can set it so that they can opt in and request to join, meaning that an administrator actually receives a notification that someone has requested to join. Alternatively, you can actually use the audiences function that Chelsea and Carrie mentioned earlier and just upload a list, meaning they'll already be in that channel, invited and ready to go. So still an invite technically, but a far less labor intensive way for you to do that. So maybe Theo or Peter, you could take Stephanie's question. Stephanie asks, are there any plans to manage channel members, invite, accept, etc., right in the app, as opposed to having to do that in Campus Cloud? I think that's one for the product team.
That's one for the product team. In the short term, unfortunately, no. We've heard that feedback and we think it's a fantastic idea. We are going to take that question and feed it right back to our product folks.
Yes, thank you for that, Stephanie. What else have we got here? We've got some questions that have been answered live. We've got a few questions coming through about the. Go ahead.
I have one question that I saw coming through a private chat about, do I need community in order to use the mental health resource?
Great, that's a really great question. The module will certainly be more impactful if you do have community. I think the keyword triggers are a really key piece of that. However, not crucial. The micro assessments, for example, could be sent via push notification. They could live within a tile. But I think we would all agree that a lot of the strength in that entitlement will come from the community. So I guess my question back to the person that asked that would be to better understand why right now the community is turned off, and would encourage them to connect with their CS to talk about how we might get that turned back on. For me, one of the greatest things about the channel management is this idea that you can kind of dip your toe into channels with read-only. Cal State Long Beach, I'm not sure if they're on the line today, are going to be dipping their toes in with a food pantry channel that is read-only, where they can post out the food offerings and remove the post when the offering is no longer. And so thank you for whoever asked that question. Let's set up a meeting, talk about the why, and talk about steps to get that community turned back on so that the mental health entitlement will be as impactful as it can be. That was a very long answer, Peter, sorry.
That was great, thank you.
So we're coming up to the top of time. Any other questions, CS team, that we've seen come through? I too am loving these ideas for channels. I think we have another question here. Debbie would love to see even more best practices and support. We totally agree, Debbie. It's one of our biggest plans for this coming academic year, is to increase that cadence that we're publicizing those best practices. So thank you for always keeping us on our toes.
Yeah, we're definitely working on adding to that repository for you guys. So as we do publish articles, we'll make sure the CSC team is keeping you guys posted on what's to come in that.
Absolutely. So it looks like, I don't think we've got any more questions. If you're anything like me, the question's going to come to you in about 2 hours time when you least expect it. So should that be the case, hopefully you all know where to find your CSC. We love hearing from you. We love putting our brains together. So do let us know if you have any questions about anything you saw today, or certainly if you're interested in setting up an overview of our Health and Wellness Plus. So with that, I'm pleased to be able to give everyone a couple of minutes back. On behalf of the CSC team, Talia and the group would like to thank you for taking time in a crazy season to join us today. And yeah, we wish you a safe, healthy, happy, exciting and vibrant back to school season. Thanks, everyone.